Your Honor, may we make an appearance before the court?
Please do.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Lily Wattier. I'm joined by my co-counsel, Rachel Strickland.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
And Hannah Sayer.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Along with our party representative, Officer Taryn Rivera.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
And before we begin, we have a few housekeeping matters to address. We have a bench book with relevant legal documents, stipulations, Midland rules of evidence, special instructions, pretrial orders, indictment, case law, and such. Permission for my co-counsel to approach and tender.
Permission granted.
We'd also like to ask for permission to move freely about the well.
Granted.
We'd like to ask your preference as to whether we should ask permission to hand exhibits to opposing counsel or the witness, or if we should simply let the record reflect when we do so.
For me, it's let the record reflect.
Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to ask your preferences when an objection is sustained. Shall we make a motion to strike or assume the offending testimony is stricken?
Assume that it would be stricken.
Yes, Your Honor. Lastly, pursuant to Rules 603 and 615 of the Midland Rules of Evidence, the prosecution moves for the constructive sequestration and swearing in of all witnesses save party representatives.
Is there any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Granted.
With that, the prosecution has no further housekeeping matters.
Thank you very much. The defense?
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. We would just like to make some introductions. My name is Quint War, and to my right is co-counsel Lexi Tunstall.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
And to my left is co-counsel Connor Sullivan.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Yeah.
And we represent Charlie Martin.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
And with that, the defense is ready to proceed.
Please proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Taylor Jacques. Oh, I'm so sorry.
We're gonna do
Opening
opening
statements,
statements.
Alright, may I proceed?
Proceed.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. It was rigged for revenge. An obstacle course, a dive, a death. That is what happened the day of the penultimate challenge of the saboteurs. What was supposed to be a normal, mundane day of filming quickly turned into disaster when Rob Armstrong's dead body was pulled from the water. Members of the jury, I want to make something clear. This didn't just happen out of the blue. This started all the way back in 2020 when both the defendant and the victim were on the saboteurs together. The Saboteurs is a game show where Survivor meets Mafia. And now, you'll learn today, members of the jury, that on the Saboteurs, backstabbing, lying, and betrayal, well, they're expected. However, what you're also going to learn is that despite knowing this, the defendant completely trusted Rob Armstrong. Even called him a friend. That was until that trust was snapped in half. In a moment that left the defendant humiliated, betrayed, and a laughingstock in front of the entire world. The defendant became Charlie the Chump. The members of the jury, what you're going to learn today is that the defendant didn't want to be known as Charlie the Chump. And so to do this, they fabricated a revenge scheme. A scheme that grew with every viral interview, every viral clip, and every viral meme that was tweeted at the defendant. So when the defendant was invited back for season 10, an all-star season of the show, he was reasonably hesitant. Until something changes her mind. The PDF. The PDF of a deadly chemical. Oxalic acid. What you're also going to learn, members of the jury, is that in the penultimate challenge of the Saboteurs, instead of simply putting extra weights into Rob Armstrong's back, like the intended sabotage, the defendant also adds deadly poison oxalic acid into Rob Armstrong's breathing mask, needing to ensure that she won no matter the cost. And the defendant got their revenge. It came at a cost. And that cost was Rob Armstrong's life. The game show was rigged for revenge. And that's why we brought a charge of murder against the defendant. To do this, we need to prove that the defendant's actions knowingly caused the death of Rob Armstrong. We need to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. For members of the jury, I want to make something clear. This doesn't mean that you can't have any doubts. Just have to be reasonable. We're going to prove these things to you 3 ways. 1, the defendant had a motive. 2, the defendant used a deadly poison. And 3, the defendant did so with the intent to kill Rob Armstrong. First, the defendant had a motive. You're going to hear from fellow season 2 contestant Taylor Jock. She's going to testify about Rob and Charlie's friendship and how Rob's betrayal ultimately destroyed whatever friendship there was between Charlie and Rob, leaving the defendant with a grudge only left to fester. Second, the defendant used a deadly poison. You're going to hear from the chief medical examiner, Dr. Atlas Hartley. He's going to testify about finding traces of oxalic acid in Rob Armstrong's body. And his ultimate conclusion? Rob Armstrong died from hypoxia induced by oxalic acid poisoning. Lastly, the defendant did so with the intent to kill Rob Armstrong. You're going to hear from the lead investigator of today's case, Taryn Rivera. She's going to testify about the defendant's access to oxalic acid and how in an interview, the defendant admits to putting it in the mask. The game show was rigged for revenge. And that's why at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Rachel Strickland, will come before you. She's going to ask that you make the only conclusion you can make with the law and evidence you'll hear today. She's going to ask you find the defendant, Charlie Martin, guilty of murder. Thank you.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. How much does good TV cost? This is a case where the producers of the TV show The Saboteurs manipulated and misled one of their own contestants. And they did this in order to get better TV ratings. And unfortunately, the producers' decisions while on the TV show unfortunately led to the death of a contestant, Rob Armstrong. Today in this case, the state will argue that Charlie Martin murdered Rob Armstrong. However, you will hear from us a much different story. Today our witnesses will tell you about how Charlie Martin was not capable of this. The state is asserting that Charlie Martin knowingly caused the death of Rob Armstrong. However, there are many things they will not tell you in this case. And our witnesses that we will call will tell you about how Charlie Martin never made any conscious decisions to put the life of Rob Armstrong in danger. One of the things that the state will not tell you is how the production team had to convince Charlie Martin to come on the show in the first place. After season 2 and the way she was humiliated by Rob Armstrong, she did not want to come back for season 10. It was only after the production team convinced her that she decided to come back on the show. Now, she would only come back on the show because she found out that Rob Armstrong would not be there. However, our first witness that we will call will tell you, Indigo Quaid, the host of the show, will tell you how Riley Kay told Charlie Martin that Rob Armstrong would not be on the show. However, that is not the case. Rob Armstrong wasn't back on the show. Now, the next thing that the state will not tell you about is how detrimental the show was to Charlie Martin's mental health. Our second witness, Dr. Michael Lynn, a psychologist who evaluated Charlie Martin, will tell you how the production team manipulated Charlie Martin. Dr. Michael Lynn will also talk about how prior to the start of the season, Charlie Martin was evaluated by another psychologist. And that psychologist talked about how Charlie Martin was diagnosed with several mental health conditions. That psychologist also said that Riley Kay needed to look out for those symptoms, signs of those mental health problems, especially when Charlie Martin was around Rob Armstrong. Another thing Dr. Michael Lynn will tell you is how, while on the show, the production team constantly reassured contestants that there were safety precautions in place, just in case something went wrong. Dr. Michael Lynn will talk about how those constant reassurance can lead to contestants believing that there's a safety net while they're on the show, and that while on the show, their actions have no real consequences. Well, the last thing I will talk about that the state will not do so is how Charlie Martin was under horrible conditions and treated horribly, along with all the other contestants. We will call Charlie Martin. She will testify about the horrible conditions, the lack of sleep, the lack of food, the constant pressure from the production team. She'll also tell you that she never intended to harm Rob Armstrong. In this case, the burden of proof lies solely on the state, and never does that burden shift to us, the defense. The state must prove that Charlie Martin caused the death of Rob Armstrong knowingly beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is the highest level in our legal system. Our witnesses today will tell you that Charlie Martin was incapable of forming that state of mind to harm Rob Armstrong. At the end of this case, you, the jury, will have to make a decision that will determine the fate of Charlie Martin. I want you to consider who is behind the scenes making the decisions, who is behind the scenes manipulating the contestants, who was ultimately responsible for making the decisions that impacted the safety of contestants while on the show. I want you to remember who is behind the scenes constantly reassuring contestants that safety precautions were in place and leading them to believe that their actions had no real consequences. How much does good TV cost? Find Charlie Martin not guilty.
prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor. At this point, prosecution calls Taylor Jacques. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And what's your name?
My name is Taylor Shaw.
What do you do for a living, Ms. Shaw?
So I work as a podcaster, although I really hate using that word to be honest, because everybody wants to be a podcaster nowadays.
On this podcast, what do you talk about?
I mainly cover reality TV, though one of my favorites to cover, though it might be a little biased honestly, is the Saboteurs. I was on the show and it was amazing. I loved everything about it, the drama, the action, and of course the contestants. I actually took notes on a lot of this stuff, so I'm really well versed in the universe of the Saboteurs.
What is the show The Saboteurs about?
So basically, it's this delightful mix of mafia and survivors. Contestants compete in different challenges, trying not to get eliminated, and then saboteurs are supposed to try to make it to the end together. If they make it to the end, the remaining saboteurs split a prize pot between this couple of them, and if the nobles vote them out, which are the good players, then they keep the prize pot and they split it between the remaining people. Saboteurs are given the option to sabotage some of the contestants to make things a little more difficult. I was actually on the show and I was really, really proud of my time on there.
When you were on the show, who was on it with you?
Oh, I was actually a saboteur during the show, and during my time on there, I got to talk a lot with Charlie Martin and Rob Armstrong, both of which delightful people. They were, I got to see a lot of the back and forth between the two of them. You know, the good, the bad, and after everything that happened, this one thing that Rob did to Charlie.
Is Ms. Martin in court with us today?
Oh yes, she's right behind you right there. She's the one in the gray sweatshirt, glasses on.
Let the record reflect the witness has properly identified the defendant. Now, you mentioned the end of season 2. What exactly did Mr. Armstrong do?
Okay, so Rob pulled off this incredible tactical stunt where he ended up telling the other contestants that Charlie Martin was a saboteur and they needed to.
To Rob Armstrong's statements.
Your response?
May I ask which statements in particular?
She said, Rob Armstrong told everyone else that Charlie Martin was a saboteur.
I'm very sorry about that. Just make sure that's off. Okay, and then, what was your exact objection?
Hearsay
Yours.
to Rob Armstrong's statements.
And what's your response?
Yes, Your Honor. We are not offering these statements for the truth of the matter asserted. We don't care about the details of what actually happened. We're simply using them to speak to what Charlie Martin believed and what this witness believed.
And your response?
I stand by my objection. I stand by my objection.
Overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Could I get the question again, please?
Of course. During the end of season 2, what did Mr. Armstrong do to the defendant?
Okay, so as I was saying, Rob pulled off this incredible stunt, got Charlie eliminated. Basically, he told the other contestants that Charlie was a saboteur and they needed to gang up on him and basically make sure he got eliminated during the challenge.
And how did the defendant react to this?
Oh, bless her heart, she went down whimpering and crying. It was awfully embarrassing, and you know, the internet saw that and did what it did best and kind of just made her a meme and a laughing stock.
Were you still keeping up with the saboteurs during season 10?
Oh yes, I was still doing my note taking. It was great. I was actually doing a podcast on this stuff, which you can check out on my Spotify later if you'd like to.
And where were you when the penultimate challenge was going to take place?
During that penultimate challenge, I was actually given the opportunity by the executives to come on set, interview some contestants, see what was happening. It was all really great. I was so happy to be there. You know, the whole thing was just lovely.
And what did the set look like for this challenge?
Oh, the set producers, they went all out, let me tell you. So there was this whole obstacle course at the beginning that contestants would run through, and then there was a whole diving portion, which contestants would dive underwater, untie some knots, and then resurface at the finish.
So, how did this challenge begin?
Well, first thing I really noticed was that Charlie was doing really well. She was on fire during that challenge. I'd never seen her run like that before, and good on her, she ended up finishing first.
What about Mr. Armstrong? How was he doing?
Well, during this challenge, I didn't really notice a lot out of normal first, but Rob got to the diving portion, and they had these masks they were supposed to put on, and Rob put on his mask, and he pulled it off immediately and started coughing over and over and over. I thought something might be wrong, but then he just put it on and dove in.
What happened next, Ms. Shaw?
I noticed that Rob was struggling during that challenge. He was moving up and down. He seemed disoriented. I don't know what happened. He pulled off his mask, and I saw the divers pulling him out of the water, and he had all these marks on his face, and I just knew that he was gone.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Before this challenge took place, did you have the opportunity to speak with any of the contestants?
Yeah, that was kind of calm before the storm of the whole thing. I got to talk with all the contestants as the person podcasting during that. Quite a lovely time for all that, but all of them were kind of giving me basic PR responses, the whole deal. Probably media trained, but Charlie, she was giving me a lot more.
What exactly was the defendant giving you?
Well, I started out with some basic questions, being my charming self and all. And then I asked Charlie about the feud between her and Rob. And then she says, I cannot be more honored to give you a front row seat to what's gonna happen to Rob today.
Did the defendant say anything else?
Yeah. I was kind of shaken up by the whole thing, but she kept going. Try not to choke from laughing so hard.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Defense?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
During season 2, you were a competitor on the show The Saboteurs, is that correct?
Oh, yes, I was. One of my best moments on TV, I'd say.
And during this time, you came to know Riley Kay, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Riley Kay was an assistant producer, is that correct?
At the time she was, yes.
And since then, she's been moved up to story producer, is that correct?
Yes, that's what I'm aware of.
Getting moved up to story producer gave Riley Kay a lot more discretion on the show.
I mean, probably. I'm not too familiar with how the hierarchy and stuff works, but I would assume that's what happened.
And by this last season, Riley Kay was pretty much running the show, is that correct?
I mean, I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, but that could have been what was happening, so.
You're aware that Riley Kay was actually set to take over the show.
That could have been what was happening, yes.
That's a yes, she was set to take over the show?
I believe so.
But only if ratings were back up to what they were during season 2 and 3.
I mean, I can't tell you what the producers were thinking with all this moving and stuff, but
Is that a yes?
it could have been. I don't know what they're thinking of.
Would you like a refresher?
No, I don't need my memory refreshing.
Is it your sworn testimony today that Riley Kay was not set to take over the show if ratings were not increased by?
I mean, that could have been the case, but I don't know what the producers are thinking. That could have been the case.
As a show analyst, you're aware of the producers' decisions, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
During season 2 to 3, the ratings were skyrocketing, and you had noted as a part of Charlie Martin's portrayal, is that correct?
Yeah, that whole thing, great for the views.
After this betrayal, Charlie Martin was attacked by the media.
Oh yeah, bless her heart, that was vicious.
And shifting to the actual season 10 filming, the live feed was actually cut from the saboteurs.
Oh yes, it was.
And the live feed is the most accurate representation that you can get of relationships during the show.
I mean, it's the most unfiltered, so in that regard, yes, I guess.
After all, producer manipulation factors into everything that viewers see.
I mean, yes, but no one can make you say anything you don't want to. I mean, like, if I said something like, I'm gonna kill that guy, that's still my own words, regardless of whether someone was asking me to say it or not.
But producers can specifically shift what viewers are able to see.
That is correct.
You noted that reality TV is so tense.
I'm sorry, I use my headphones a lot, so could you repeat that?
You noted that reality TV is so tense.
It can be tense at times, yeah.
The highly competitive nature to competitors.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
It's extremely tense with the highly competitive nature to all of the competitors.
It can be at times, yeah.
And many of times, the only person that other competitors can trust is the producer.
Objection, 701 speculation, may I be heard?
Yes.
The opposing counsel is asking this witness to delve into the mindset of every other competitor and therefore know who they would or would not trust.
If this is cross-examination, I'm gonna allow it.
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, could I get that question again?
Sometimes the only person that competitors are able to trust is the producer, is that correct?
I mean, I'm no psychic, I feel I don't know what other people are thinking, but that could be the case.
Is that a yes?
It's a maybe, it depends on the person.
No further questions.
Do you want opportunity for redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. I just ask that the witness be excused.
Okay, thank you. You're excused. Prosecution, you're going to call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to call Dr. Atlas Hartley to the stand. May I proceed?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon. Would you please state your name for the court?
Hi, my name is Dr. Atlas Hartley.
And what do you do for a living, Dr. Hartley?
I'm the Chief Medical Examiner in Charlotte County, Midlands, and I've been in this position for the past 5 years.
And why are you here with us in court today?
I'm here to give my expert testimony and conclusions about Mr. Rob Armstrong's death.
Now, Doctor, would you be able to provide the court with your educational background and history?
Of course. First, I went to school in South Florida for my MD. After that, I underwent postgraduate training for my District School of Medicine in Michigan. After that, I underwent a residency for anatomical and clinical pathology.
Now, did you review any facts or data when coming to your conclusions in today's case?
Yes, I did. So I reviewed a safety data sheet for oxalic acid poisoning, my own autopsy report that I conducted, a video of Mr. Armstrong in the water, a label about oxalic acid, and many other things.
And were these facts and data sufficient in coming to your conclusions?
Yes, they were.
Now, did you use a method when you were coming to your conclusions?
Yes, I used the standard method set forth by the National Association of Medical Examiners. The collective name for these techniques is the TRACK method. It's standard and peer reviewed in my field.
Could you tell us a little bit more about this TRACK method?
Oh, yes. It stands for test, review, analyze, and conclude. I first tested different theories about what could have possibly killed Mr. Armstrong before reviewing that with the evidence and data that I've gathered. I then analyzed this all together with my physical autopsy and examination before I finally concluded that Mr. Armstrong's primary cause of death was drowning caused by oxalic acid poisoning.
Now, doctor, did you reliably apply this method to today's case?
Yes, and I always do.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to start all the way back at the beginning of your analysis. Where did you start?
Well, I first began by watching a video of Mr. Armstrong in the water in a dive portion of the challenge.
And what happened in that video?
Well, first, around the 5-minute portion of the video, I noticed Mr. Armstrong had a decrease in swimming capabilities. His kicks weren't as strong and he seemed to be weakening. This stood out to me as a sign of poisoning, with correlating to my experience in poisoning cases.
And what did you do when you noticed those signs?
Apologies. So this stood out to me as a sign of oxalic acid poisoning. I did further research about what could have poisoned it might have been. And oxalic poison is when a compound known as oxalate enters the human body, and it can have disastrous effects on the human body.
And what is oxalic acid?
Oxalic acid is commonly found in things like bleach or floor cleaner, and it is very dangerous.
Now, doctor, in reviewing your materials, you mentioned a material safety data sheet. Would you recognize that here in court today?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I'm approaching opposing counsel as well as the witness in terms of what's been marked as Exhibit 14.
Any objection? Objection to hearsay.
Would you like to elaborate on your statements?
The document is an out-of-court statement being taken for the truth of the matter asserted.
Your Honor, if I may, I would just ask that my witness be able to testify to the fact that it's a fair and accurate copy that's reliable. They could attest to this document before I attempt to enter it into evidence.
I'll let you lay a foundation.
I appreciate that, thank you. Dr. Hartley, what is this?
This is a material safety data sheet from the Midlands Product Safety Commission. I use it in my analysis.
And does this appear to be a fair and accurate copy?
Yes, it appears so.
Now, did you rely on this when coming to your conclusion in today's case?
Yes, it was very helpful, specifically about the health hazard information and other parts of it.
Objection to hearsay?
And again, what was that specific objection to hearsay?
To the contents on the data sheet?
Your Honor, I'm about to move to enter it into evidence, if that would be acceptable.
Do you have any objection to this going into evidence?
Yes, the hearsay.
The hearsay? And your response to that objection?
Yes, Your Honor. My response would be under 703. This is an expert witness, and they are allowed to testify to the contents of documents that they used within their examination. Dr. Hartley has just stated that he relied on this evidence for his examination, and therefore it is an exception under the hearsay rule.
I did not hear you qualify him as an expert.
Your Honor, the prongs under 702, I asked Dr. Hartley about his educational background. If you'll give me one moment while I grab the prongs, I don't remember exactly all of them. But under 702, I believe there are 4 prongs. If you give me one moment. Here we are. So the prongs are the expert's scientific, technical, or specialized knowledge will help the trier of the fact to understand evidence or determine an issue. We've established that he's a medical examiner. It's based on sufficient facts or data. I asked him that question. He relied on the facts and data. It is the product of reliable principles and methods. Dr. Hartley stated his method, explained it, and said it was peer-reviewed, standard in his field. And the expert's opinion reflects a reliable application of the principles and methods. Dr. Hartley has stated that he reliably applied this method.
Yes, but what I didn't hear you do is ask that he be considered an expert witness.
Your Honor, I'm not aware in the state of Midlands that that is a requirement. I believe that once all the prongs are satisfied, Dr. Hartley is assumed an expert witness unless objected specifically by opposing counsel under Rule 702.
I didn't hear you object to that.
Yes.
Is that yes, you did object to it, or no, you didn't?
I'm objecting that this is not they have not established Dr. Hartley as an expert witness.
Sorry, I didn't quite hear you. Did you just
sorry.
speak up? That's okay.
I'm objecting to the fact that they have not established Dr. Hartley.
Okay, but we're gonna establish that now. I mean, the prosecution has reviewed the 4 prongs necessary to establish, Dr. Hartley as an expert witness. What is your objection to him being entered as an expert witness?
I'm objecting to the material, the relevance of them.
Well, we're not talking about the material. At this point, we're talking about, is he an expert witness or not?
I don't have any objections to that.
Okay. Since there's no objections, then the document that he based his findings on, I'm going to admit it to evidence.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Dr. Hartley, what are some of the symptoms mentioned on this PDF?
Yes. So specifically when inhaled, it's a severe respiratory irritant, so it can cause coughing, burns, and in severe cases, nervous system damage and organ damage.
And was Mr. Armstrong exhibiting any of the signs and symptoms you just listed?
Yes, he was, as well as hypoxia.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like the record to reflect on retrieving this exhibit from the witness. Your Honor, I'd like permission for the witness to make use of a demonstrative in the well.
Go ahead.
Would you like us to reposition it so you can see it?
Yeah, maybe if we look, put
We
it
move it over here.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's hard to see.
Better.
Yeah, is that? Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Hartley, what is shown here?
So this is a diagram of the human body. It's meant to represent Mr. Armstrong as I examined him after his death.
Now, beginning in your external examination, what did you notice?
Well, in my external examination, I first noticed on his face that there were 8 small scars. They were about 1 centimeter in size or smaller. This stood to me as a potential sign of a chemical burn. This is the most probable cause of these burns around his face.
And was there anything else in the face that indicated this?
Well, going even further inside into his mouth, I noticed more similar burns and scars. These correlate to them being chemical burns as well.
And was there any more evidence of this when you moved through the body?
Yes, going even further into my internal examination, going to his bronchi and tracheae in his throat, I noticed that it was mildly red and raw, and this stood out as a sign of chemical inhalation specifically.
Now, moving on to your internal examination, was there anything that you found there?
Yes, continuing down this train of thought into his lungs, I noticed that there was an extensive amount of the compound oxalic acid I talked about earlier, and this shows that it was inhaled in a powderized form.
Now, doctor, was there anything else unusual during your internal examination of the body?
Yes. Most of his organs appeared regular, except for his kidneys. I noticed that they had a unique pallor or color to them. I later ran a blood report and toxicology report based on these samples of his kidneys.
And now, what did this blood report and toxicology report reveal?
It revealed that by this point, or at least after his death, Mr. Armstrong had reached late-stage oxalic acid poisoning, which means that it entered his body and infiltrated into his organs, his kidneys, and spread into his bloodstream, affecting the rest of his body and acidifying his blood.
And what does the acidification of his blood mean?
This is a process known as acidotic metabolysis. Mr. Armstrong is undergoing this. It means that his blood has become too acidic to function properly. The body would like to stay in the middle, somewhere safe. It's called homeostasis. And Mr. Armstrong, his blood became too acidic. It went down on the pH scale. And so this is very dangerous, and it negatively affects how the human body functions.
And doctor, do you know what the cause of this high acidity level in the blood is?
Yes. When he inhaled the oxalic acid in a powderized form, I estimate between 1.2 and 2.1 grams worth of the powder had entered his body.
Now, Dr. Hartley, in your expert opinion, how did Mr. Armstrong die?
The primary cause of Mr. Armstrong's death was drowning. This was caused due to complications by oxalic acid poisoning, which caused hypoxia and led to disorientation, where he removed his breathing mask under the water, causing him to drown.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions for the witness at this time.
Thank you.
Would opposing counsel like me to leave out or deconstruct the demonstrative?
You can take it down.
Thank you for allowing me to sit in my chair, opposing counsel.
Proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Dr. Hartley.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here. First, I want to clarify the cause of death you found was asphyxia resulting from drowning, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And that basically means that Bob Armstrong was deprived of oxygen, correct?
Yes, it's a fancy way of saying that he sadly drowned.
And you agree that there are multiple reasons that someone could have been deprived of oxygen, right?
Yes, there's multiple reasons. My analysis found that the primary and most probable cause was oxalic acid poisoning.
But there are other potential causes, right?
Yes, I will admit that there are other potential causes, but they are very unprobable.
Now in the kidneys you noted calcium oxalate crystals. Is that true?
Yes, I noticed that they had a peculiar proliferation. It's the way that they form and the number of how they form. These are known as kidney stones. It's a fancy medical term for it.
Another thing I want to bring up is you often specialize in poisoning cases. Is that true?
Yes, I would like to call myself an expert in poisoning cases.
So a lot of the autopsies you do end up you deciding it as a poisoning. Most of them.
Yes, about 5,000 cases a year come into my office in Charlotte County. Many of them turn out to be poisoning cases, and I'm quite good at recognizing them as such.
Now when it comes to oxalic acid, it is highly dissolvable in water. Is that true?
Yes, it is, especially when it's a powder.
So when it comes in contact with water, it can easily be dissolved, right?
Yes, it can.
Now, you were unable to determine where in the mask the oxalic acid was. Is that true?
I was not. I did not examine Mr. Armstrong's mask, and if there was oxalic acid powder in there, would have washed away when he took off his mask and sadly drowned.
Are you familiar with the label on the bottle of oxalic acid?
Yes, I am. I testified that I studied it for my report.
And as an expert dealing with poisoning, you believe that the label on the bottle was not clear enough at showing the potential dangers.
Yes, I testified to this, I wrote in my affidavit about this. I believe that the makers of the oxalic acid, specifically for the label, could have gone much further in demonstrating how dangerous oxalic acid could possibly be. I find that the label for it was frankly silly.
Thank you, I have no further questions.
Okay, any retorts?
No regret, Your Honor, I just asked my witness to be allowed to step down.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Prosecution, you have a third witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls investigator Taryn Rivera.
Could you just go down a bit?
Yeah, of course. Let me know when you're finished.
Please proceed.
Of course, Your Honor. Please introduce yourself to the court.
Good afternoon. My name is Taryn Rivera.
And what do you do for work, Ms. Rivera?
So I was an agent for the FBI. I actually still am, but I'm on a special task force with the FTC, or the Federal Trade Commission, specifically investigating game shows.
What do you do as a part of this task force?
Yeah, so the FTC basically protects consumers. So think fraud, stuff like that. My specific task force has to do with game show fraud. So making sure prizes are fair, making sure the network isn't pre-rigging the games, anything like that I would do.
Okay, well, what game shows have you investigated?
Well, I actually recently joined the force. The first one was actually the saboteurs. We received a bunch of anonymous tips, basically alluding to pre-rigging the game, and so I ended up going undercover on the show in order to investigate.
Well, what did you find when you went undercover?
I had my suspicions, but I actually didn't find much as relating to game show fraud. It wasn't until Rob Armstrong passed away that I was able to become the lead investigator on that case.
Did you ever learn how Rob Armstrong died?
Yeah, so a few days after Rob Armstrong died, the autopsy was given to me, and that's when we found out that it was actually, he died from hypoxia induced by oxalic acid poisoning.
After finding this out, what did you do?
Well, once there was some evidence of foul play, I started to look around, look for evidence, interview some people. It actually all led me to Charlie Martin.
What did your investigation of the defendant reveal?
So first we were looking at devices, things like that. So we actually found some text on Charlie Martin's phone, more specifically.
Would you recognize these text messages if I showed them to you?
Yes, I would.
Let the record reflect I'm approaching opposing counsel with what has been marked for identification as exhibits 18A and 18B. Yep. A courtesy copy, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
What did I just hand you, Investigator Rivera?
These are the text messages found on Charlie Martin's phone between them and a producer on the show, Riley Kay.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of what you saw?
Yes, this all looks correct.
Your Honor, at this point I move that exhibits 18A and D be admitted into evidence.
Defense, any objection?
Yes, I'd like to raise an objection for hearsay regarding Riley Kay's statements. I would just like to have those redacted.
Response on this, Madam Chairman?
Yeah.
Your Honor, I would argue that Riley Kay's statements are not hearsay, and hearsay is an out-of-court statement made for the truth of the matter. We are not using this for the truth of the matter. We do not care of what Riley Kay is saying in these text messages are true.
I'll allow them for that limited purpose. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. What is talked about in these text messages?
So in this first set of text messages on January 5th, it's talking about, Charlie Martin's talking about the cast list, and then says, I'm not letting this happen again.
What about that second set of text messages?
So these are from a few days later, specifically January 8th. And it says, fine, I'm in, but you owe me big time. And then Charlie Martin goes on to ask about the rules on the sabotages.
Did your investigation reveal anything in between these two text messages?
Yeah, so my digital forensics team specifically found a PDF downloaded to Charlie Martin's phone between these two text messages.
Would you recognize this PDF if I showed it to you?
Yes, I would.
Let the record reflect I'm approaching opposing counsel and the witness in turn what is already in evidence as Exhibit 14. I believe you already have a courtesy copy, Your Honor?
Correct.
There you go. Would you like me to take that, or? What did I just hand you, Investigator Rivera?
So this is the material safety data sheet that was found downloaded onto Charlie Martin's phone about 2 hours before that last set of text messages.
And what is this? What is contained in this document?
Yeah, so it has to do with oxalic acid. It's kind of talking about what it is and different hazards and first aid measures that you can take with it.
And when was this found on the defendant's phone relative to the previously discussed text messages?
Yeah, so this was found to be downloaded less than 2 hours before that last set of text messages on January 8th.
Now, after finding this PDF, did your investigation reveal anything else?
Yes, so we brought Riley Kay in for an interrogation at some point, and she admitted to bringing a
Objection, Your Honor. This is hearsay on the statements being elicited by Riley Kay.
I'm sorry, could you elaborate as to what statements?
The statements your witness is about to make coming out of Riley Kay's mouth.
Your Honor, I asked that the witness be allowed to make the statement before an objection be made?
Allowed.
Would you like to finish your sentence?
Yes, we brought Riley Kay in for for an interrogation, and it was then that they admitted to giving Charlie Martin a burner phone.
Objection, again, just re-raising my objection to hearsay. The statement where Riley says, the admittance is out of court statement being taken for the truth of the matter.
Response on those grounds, Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Your Honor, we are not using these for the truth amount as well. If I may proffer.
What would you proffer?
I am about to bring up a set of text messages from said phone, and that will show that we are not using these for the truth of the matter asserted. Not hearsay. Not those sets, a different set of text messages from the burner phone that was discussed.
I'm gonna sustain the objection.
If I could just move to strike that testimony from the record.
So stricken.
Would you recognize these text messages if I showed them to you?
Yes.
Let the record reflect I'm approaching opposing counsel and the witness in turn with what has been marked for identification as Exhibit 19B. Would you like me to dictate that, or? Courtesy copy, Your Honor?
Please.
What did I just hand you, Investigator Rivera?
These are the text messages from the burner phone.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of what you saw?
Yes.
Your Honor, this point I move that the exhibit be admitted into evidence.
Objection, Your Honor. The statements made by Riley Kay within these messages are again out-of-court statements being taken for the truth of the matter.
Response on those grounds, Your Honor? Once again, I would argue that these statements from Riley Kay are not hearsay, and we are not using them for the truth of the matter.
What are you using them for?
We are using these to show the effect on the listener and Charlie Martin's subsequent action of, may I proffer? Asking Riley Kay where the chemicals are, and then going to grab the chemicals and putting them in Rob Armstrong's breathing mask.
But isn't that for the truth of the matter asserted?
Well, Riley Kay's statements in those text messages are basically just asking Charlie Martin about if she is sure and telling Charlie Martin where the chemicals are. We are not using those for the truth of the matter. We don't care if Riley Kay was correct about where the oxalic acid and the chemicals were.
Counsel, are text messages, is that actually someone speaking? Is that hearsay?
Yes, those would be out-of-court statements being taken for the truth of the matter. And if I could just make another point, there's no actual proof that what counsel is proffering, which is Charlie responding to the text messages of Riley Kay by grabbing the oxalic acid happened directly after these text messages were exchanged. Therefore, this would not fall under effect on the listener.
Was this part of the investigation process?
Yes, it was brought in, it was from a burner phone given from Riley Kay when she was brought into an interrogation via the investigation.
Well, I'm going to sustain the objection.
And if I could also move this testimony to be stricken from the record.
So moved.
Your Honor, may I make a move to re-admit it as a constructively redacted version, simply redacting the Riley Kay statements?
You may.
What is talked about in these text messages?
You can see here that Charlie Martin asks, where do they keep the cleaning supplies in this place? Like, not the mops and buckets, but the chemicals.
Now, after this, what else did your investigation reveal?
Oh, we brought Charlie Martin in for an interrogation, and from there the defendant admitted to putting the oxalic acid in Rob Armstrong's mask.
Now, Investigator Rivera, I want to take a step back to your time on the show. Did you ever hear the defendant and victim talking to each other?
Yes, so I remember one time, there was this one instance where, I used to see them interact actually often, but sometimes the cameras were off, and in this one instance they were. I remember they were kind of arguing, and Charlie Martin said, I won't regret a thing when you take your last breath. Push me too far, and that day will be here before you know it.
After the defendant said, I won't regret a thing, you take your last breath. Did they say anything else?
Yeah, I remember that everyone kind of got quiet, and Charlie said, enjoy your next few days, because they will be your last.
Now, Investigator Rivera, with all of this evidence, what did you ultimately end up doing?
With all the evidence, I obtained a warrant for the arrest of Charlie Martin.
Thank you, Investigator Rivera, for your time. I have no further question at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense counsel?
Yes. If I may proceed.
Yeah, please.
Hi, Investigator Rivera. I just want to ask a few questions, starter, just for clarification. So you were on the set originally regarding the rigging and manipulation by production?
Yes, again, I was on a special task force with the FTC where I went undercover as a crew member in order to investigate saboteurs for game show rigging.
And you had done this after receiving a large number of tips regarding rigging. This is over 50 anonymous tips.
Yes, not all of them had evidence to corroborate, but with that many tips coming in, we absolutely wanted to go undercover. I didn't actually find anything right out the bat, but yeah.
And later, sorry, you've also never actually worked on a murder case before this, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Well, I have the same training as any other FBI agent of various amount of crimes through Quantico. I mainly worked in the white collar division during my time there.
And let's talk about that. Your main specialties are not regarding the investigation of murder or forensics. It is specifically only for rigging and game show, rigging and manipulation.
So that's actually not correct. I'm an FBI agent, and so while I am on a specific task force in the FTC right now, I'm still an FBI agent. And while again, I primarily worked in white collar crime, I still have the same training as any other person who works for the FBI.
But just to clarify, you don't have any experience investigating murder cases.
No, other than the huge amount of training I got just to become an FBI agent.
And the correlation between your specialty, which is focused on rigging and manipulation, has nothing really to do with investigating a murder case.
So I would actually disagree with that. White collar crime, I'm able to, again, I have many training. Again, my specialization is not in rigging and manipulation, but again, rather white collar crime. A lot of those areas actually intersect more than you believe.
Now, when you did start to suspect foul play during the investigation, it was specifically after an event where you saw Riley Kay, a producer on the show, factory reset the main production computers.
Again, not completely true. We did take Riley Kay in for interrogation based on her destroying the evidence, but she actually wasn't, that had nothing to do with Rob Armstrong's death. We had to wait a few days for the autopsy to come back before we even realized that there might be foul play involved.
But that was when you started suspecting something was going on.
Yeah, something was going on, but again, Riley Kay, who entered an immunity deal during that, it had nothing to do with the death of Rob Armstrong or the obstruction of evidence.
But that's a yes.
Again, sort of, but I wouldn't say that was the direct cause of me believing that there was foul play.
I want to talk a bit more about your involvement in the investigation directly. You had to ask to be included within the case.
Yes, so once I, let the police force know that I have all this training, that I'm an FBI agent, they were more than happy to let me come on, especially because I had already been on set. That knowledge definitely helps me be the lead investigator.
You would not have been an investigator for the murder otherwise.
Objection, speculation, may I be heard, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, it is not within my witness's rationally based perception to be able to go into the mind of another person and say what they would have possibly done under different circumstances.
This is cross, so I'm going to allow it. Proceed.
Would you like me to re-ask the question?
Oh, yes, please.
So, if you had not asked to be part of the investigation, you would not have been part of the case at all.
Well, yes, I was on the set as the FTC. They obviously, as an undercover agent, they didn't necessarily know that I was there for the thing. So I did ask, but again, they brought me on as soon as they heard about my training.
But you would not have been asked otherwise to join the case.
Yes, but that wasn't because of my lack of skill, but rather just my lack of being part of the local police force.
And once you were on the case for the investigation, you and your team ultimately concluded that there wasn't any identifying signs that foul play was involved in Armstrong's death.
Can you repeat the
Yes.
question?
Once you were on the investigation, you and your team ultimately concluded that there was no identifying signifiers that foul play took part in Armstrong's death.
No, that's not true. We ended up interrogating Charlie Martin. We're here for a murder case. The fact that there was oxalic acid poisoning is absolutely an indicator of foul play. Whether that was obviously why the investigation started.
If I could refer to counsel here. Were you aware that you had 24 hours before trial to change your statement?
Yes.
And this is your signature on the back of this affidavit.
Yes, that is correct.
If you could read lines, if you could read lines 289 for me.
Yes, so I see the confusion. We didn't identify any signs of foul play in Armstrong's death until after the medical examiner's autopsy. That doesn't mean there were no signs of foul play. Again, we waited a few days for that autopsy to get back, so that's when we found out that there was oxalic acid poisoning, and obviously that was a clear indicator of foul play.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. I just asked that my witness be allowed to step down.
So granted.
Your Honor, at this time, the prosecution rests case in chief.
Okay.
There's a customary break. We could confirm with timekeepers.
Okay, great, thanks. We'll take that break. How long is the
All
break?
loss is in 1 hour and 55 minutes, so 5 to 10 minutes, depending on your honor's preference.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Oh, actually, sorry, real quick, I just noticed earlier, it seems that on my, comment sheet, I had Atlas Hartley as the third witness and Taryn Rivera as the second. I just wanna clarify, so who directs Taryn Rivera?
Me.
And
Hi.
what's your name?
Hannah Sayer, S-E-H-R.
Okay, and then the witness that plays Taryn Rivera, what's your name?
Sky Clark?
Okay, I have that right, and then the crossing attorney for Taryn Rivera?
No, yeah, sorry.
Okay, cool, and then for Atlas Hartley, Rachel Strickland, is that the directing attorney? And then Sean is the witness for that one?
Yes.
And then Connor Sullivan, crossing attorney?
Yes.
Okay, cool, so when you guys get these, the order's gonna be swapped, but it's the same people.
Yeah,
doing
okay,
something
cool.
else. Just want to make sure that was true.
Thank you. Okay, then.
No, see, the issue is, for some reason, it's the, yeah. I just want to make sure that I have the right people
Yes,
doing the
right,
right things.
exactly.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. The game was rigged. It was rigged for revenge. It was rigged by the defendant. Members of the jury, today you learned about a pivotal moment in the defendant's life. You learned about the day she became Charlie the Chump. The day she lost out on $500,000. And the day that she became obsessed with one and only one thing: revenge. Revenge on the man that had cost her so much. Revenge on the man who betrayed her on the cusp of glory: Rob Armstrong. But revenge had to wait for 5 long years. That was until a woman named Indigo Quaid pitched the idea of an all-star season. And well, there was her opportunity. Her opportunity to face Rob Armstrong. Her opportunity to get revenge. Members of the jury, we've charged the defendant with murder. In order to prove murder, we must show you that the defendant knowingly and intentionally killed Rob Armstrong, and that her actions did lead to the death of Rob Armstrong. Now, I'd like to be clear. We have to prove this to you beyond a reasonable doubt. That means you're allowed to have some questions, but you just have to ask, are they reasonable? Is it reasonable that the defendant downloaded this PDF onto her phone, and then 89 minutes later texted Riley Kay that she was going to come back onto the show? Is it reasonable that she had a burner phone and begged to find chemicals that she knew were toxic and fatal. You have to ask, is it reasonable that she put that chemical into the breathing mask and didn't think it would kill him? I want Rob to feel an ounce of the pain that I have lived with for 5 years. That's what she told the cops. Because all of this was just a game, right? Wrong. She had been planning his death for months. Planning since she downloaded that PDF. Planning since she texted Riley K. Planning since she got back onto the show. After she agreed to come back on, after she texted Riley K, a switch flipped. All that was left to do was win. And so she did all the pomp and circumstance. She interviewed with Ms. Quaid. She answered question upon question. And she just wanted to be done being the butt end of an eternal joke. Or at least that's what she wanted you to think. Because when she got back onto the show, her plan was set into motion. All she had to do was win. And that's what she tried to do. She went to the basement. She found that oxalic acid. After having been warned that it could kill him, she placed it into that mask, knowing that it could kill him. And so she went and she lined up alongside Rob for what she knew would be his final challenge. She competed alongside him. She ran the obstacle course, she solved a couple puzzles, she dove into the water, she came out, and when she finished, she celebrated. She celebrated, she jumped up and down and all around, while Rob was still in the water. Rob was in the water, and that poison was in his throat. He became dizzy, he became disoriented, his throat began to burn. All while she was over there celebrating. His throat began to burn, he became panicked, he could have suffered from blackouts, he started to suffocate and die. All while she was celebrating. Members of the jury, Taryn Rivera went undercover to investigate game show rigging. And that is exactly what she found. She just never could have had any idea that a man would end up dead. Because the only person that could have known that is the defendant. Because she rigged his fate. Members of the jury, make no mistake. Had Rob Armstrong made it to the surface, the lethal concentration of acid in his system still would have killed him. She rigged his fate. She rigged the game for revenge. Find the defendant guilty. Thank you.
Okay, defense.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. How much does good TV cost? On April 6th, 2025, contestants dove into the water. 2 of those contestants included Charlie Martin and Rob Armstrong. You see, Rob Armstrong never surfaced, and Rob Armstrong deserves justice, but it will not be found in the prosecution of Ms. Charlie Martin. You see, today prosecution has painted out Charlie Martin to be a murderer. But what they haven't showed you is who was behind the camera. They haven't shown you the manipulation that went into every single episode that Charlie Martin was in. They haven't showed you the way that the camera was framed to make Charlie Martin the bad guy. They didn't show you that Charlie Martin should never have been cast on the saboteurs. You see, today the burden of proof rests with the prosecution. They must prove to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Ms. Charlie Martin knowingly caused the death of Rob Armstrong. Now, today the defense has called 3 witnesses. First, the defense called Inigo Quaid. Inigo Quaid, the host of the saboteur, testified to the language the prosecution called motive. Inigo Quaid testified that they were encouraged to use words like murder. They were encouraged to use violent terms while on the show, because after all, that's what makes good TV. Next, the defense called Michael Lynn. Michael Lynn testified that Charlie Martin exhibited signs of PTSD after season 2 of The Saboteurs. She testified that Charlie Martin should never have been cast on the show. She testified that she was much more susceptible to manipulation and believing that there was a safety net for her actions when she put the oxalic acid into the mask. Finally, the defense called Charlie Martin. Charlie Martin testified to the conditions on set. She testified to the treatment from producer Riley Kay. Just a little farther. A little more excitement, a bigger sabotage, a little oxalic acid. When Charlie Martin put that oxalic acid into the mask, she didn't know of the harm that it could cause to Rob Armstrong. She testified herself, she believed the mask, he would take it right off. He would smell it, he would never go into that water. Now today you heard from Taylor Draw. Taylor Draw testified to you that Riley Kay needed ratings. If she could get ratings back from season 2 and season 3, she would have the show. The prosecution also called Atlas Hartley. Atlas Hartley testified that the bottle of oxalic acid that Charlie Martin had did not clearly or proficiently express the dangers of oxalic acid. Prosecution also called Tanner Vera. Tanner Vera testified to you that there was clear rigging on the show. There was rigging by the producers. The producers were breaking rules again and again. You see here today, Charlie Martin is a victim. Charlie Martin has been used again and again to make good TV. Charlie Martin did not know the harm that would be caused when she put that oxalic acid into Rob Armstrong's mask. Rob Armstrong deserves justice. It will not be found in the prosecution of Charlie Martin. Thank you.
Rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, the defense just came up here and they asked some questions. I'd like to give you some answers to those questions. They just asked, how much does good TV cost? That's the wrong question to be asking. The right question to be asking is, how much does revenge cost? Because in this case, it's a man's life. Now, they just told you that she didn't want to come back to the show, but you heard their own expert, Michael Lynn, testify that she chose to come back of her own accord. She wasn't forced. She wasn't persuaded. She chose by herself to make that return. You heard Charlie say herself she put the acid in the mask. You heard that Atlas Hartley believed the label didn't go far enough, but you also heard that there was a housekeeper who clearly warned her that that acid was dangerous. there were multiple, separate instances where Miss Martin was told, that acid is dangerous. She chose to put it in the mask. She chose to pay the cost of revenge. The defense has told you that Riley Kay has been rigging this game all along, has been manipulating. But there was an FBI agent undercover the whole time who testified that there was no evidence of game show rigging. As a matter of fact, there was no evidence of anything wrong on the saboteurs until a man ended up dead. So let me ask you, are there any more reasonable questions? Because I can't find any. The only question that I have is it reasonable that Miss Martin did this and didn't think that it would kill him? And the answer is no.